All right, so I'm Blake McCoy. I'm a board member here at Blue River Community Church, and Phil and Ashley are currently heading down to go on a cruise this morning with my sister and brother-in-law, so they're leaving me behind here. So a little bit about myself. I'm an upcoming freshman at Grace College, and I'm going to be starting in 20 days from today. And I'm also a huge hobbyist. I've been into photography and fishing recently, and I love learning new things. I'm also really big into athletics. I played basketball, tennis, and I ran track in high school, so I enjoy being active and just trying new things. And I'll get into a story related to that in just a minute. So we're beginning a new series called The Journey of Peter, where we're going to be going through the discipleship journey of Peter and comparing it to our own walk of faith. And today is the first step, which is following. So my main sport in high school was track, and I mainly high jumped and long jumped, and I was pretty successful at it. Throughout my 4 years, I won conference twice and got runner-up once in high jump. And just these two events weren't enough for me heading into my junior year.
All right, Blake, we're going to interview you here.
Okay. Am I too quiet?
Huh?
Yeah, am I too quiet?
You can speak up.
Okay. But those two events weren't enough for me, and I had a friend that did throwing events, so I naturally went and tried them out out of curiosity, thinking I might be kind of good at them. I wasn't, so I didn't do that, but I still wanted to try something else, and again, it was my junior year, so it was a good time to explore the options I had before I locked into my niche for my senior year. So I decided to try pole vault, and I always thought it'd be fun to just try it and see it, see how good I could do at it. And it seemed like a lot of fun, like flinging myself through the air like that, seeing all those people do it, like really cool or whatever. And I was really wrong. I had an early warning when I did my second practice run-up ever and cut my leg pretty bad with my spikes, and I got this scar on my leg. And then I decided to continue on and just try it for one meet. And I'd practice a little bit every day, and I'd just do that a little bit, even though I was working on my main events. And there was no real pressure for me to do well at the meet. I was just like a kind of see what you can do type of thing. And on my third attempt, when I went to my meet, after absolutely smoking the first two, I had no chance of clearing out my two. I knocked down the pole that I was supposed to jump over and fell right on my back, right in the perfect spot for the pole to land on my face and knock parts of two of my teeth out. I wasn't very happy about that, and I was mostly scared about what I'd have to do, like going to the dentist and getting my teeth fixed and stuff. But I still decided to go on and high jump after that at the meet. Even though I didn't clear any more heights, I do remember my coach giving me some pointers to clear it or whatever, and then I told him I was just a little mentally off from the whole missing teeth thing, and he sent me home with my parents. And I got my teeth fixed the next morning, and everything was all right except for the bill, which meant it was time to retire from pole vaulting after a 3-week career at the discretion of my parents. So when I tell you this story, the main thing you focus on are the large crazy moments, the knocking out my teeth. But this story wasn't just that. I practiced pole vault a bit, and I tried to improve. While I wasn't actually good enough to clear a height, my form and ability were completely different from my first day to my eventual last, when there was a massive change that set me in a different course, that being quitting pole vault. So we've had the experiences like this that can be, or in our own lives, where we're curious about something and it leads us down a path, whether that's good or bad. And there may be something or some times in that when miraculous moments happen, or even something terrible. And those moments stand out as a headline for change. But again, like I said, there's more to it. This time, this is the same with our journeys in our faith. We begin our walk with Jesus and change happens. We are not limited to one thing happening, and everything isn't over just after one thing happens. So an example of this in our Bible is Jacob in Genesis 32. Jacob has already been chosen by God. God already told Jacob that he will prosper and his descendants will be like the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted. Yet we see in Genesis 32 that Jacob is still struggling to the point that he literally wrestles with God. He wrestled with God from night until daybreak. Along with this, Jacob's name is changed from Jacob, which means the deceiver, to Israel, wrestles with God. In the time that Jacob is wrestling with the literal God of the universe in physical form, he is changed. The figure he wrestles with also eventually touches Jacob's hip and twists it so it never works the same again. So there's physical change too. This story is very typical of many conversion experiences. God comes out of nowhere with a fight, and all of the sudden we're right in the middle of it without even thinking. As Christians, we become the one who wrestles with God. We also have experienced God in the flesh in Jesus, and because of that, our identities are changed. So now let's look at Peter, the main person in this series. In Luke 22, verses 31 and 32, Jesus tells Peter, or Simon, 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 Satan has asked to sift all of you as wheat, but I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. So we can see in this that Peter isn't 100% trusting in Jesus. Even though he says in the verse right after this that he's ready to go as far as death with Jesus, we know right after this that Peter denies Jesus 3 times before the rooster crows. And this isn't the start of Peter's walk either. He's been with Jesus for about 3 years at this point, yet he hasn't been converted into this perfect executor of God's will yet. He is still a human who fails up to live up to the perfection of God. So this doesn't mean that Peter wasn't a different person from the time he met Jesus until the point we just talked about, or even after this specific point. And I can tell you guys about both. So in Luke 5, 1 through 11, we see a story that Phil talked about a few weeks ago. It's where Jesus tells Peter to go cast his net in a certain spot, and Peter gives like a patronizing, almost annoyed answer to Jesus when he says, "Master, we've worked hard all night and we haven't caught anything, but because you say so, I will let down the nets." So it already seems from that Peter's a little annoyed with Jesus saying like, "Hey, go cast your net over there." And he doesn't appreciate someone telling him where to cast, especially, and with catching nothing. And as someone like myself who likes to fish all the time, it's easy to lose your spirit when you can't catch anything. And I couldn't imagine how Peter felt with a huge net, which makes it a lot easier. So this Peter here is much different than the one we just talked about. He has no trust in Jesus at all, and he probably only acted on the word of Jesus because Jesus was a rabbi. Now that I've told you about the beginning and the middle, we're going to talk about the end. So the end of Peter's life isn't in the Bible, but there are some historical records that do tell us what did happen, and it's generally believed that this is what happened. So Peter moved to Rome when he was getting older, and it was while Nero was the emperor, and Nero declared that all Christians were to be put to death. So when Peter heard this, he decided to leave Rome to spare his own life. And when he was walking out of the city, he saw Jesus Christ, the risen Jesus Christ, heading the other direction. And he asked Jesus, "Where are you going?" Jesus told him, "I'm heading to Rome to be crucified again." And Peter knew in this moment that Jesus isn't talking about himself. And Peter knew that this would be his end. We can see this actually in the Bible. In John 21:18, Jesus tells Peter that someone else will lead him to where he does not want to go. And in verse 19 it says, Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. So Peter knew while he was standing right outside of Rome that he was going to die. And he heads back into the city where he is arrested and convicted, and they decide to kill him by crucifixion. But he asks for one favor when he does that. He asks to be crucified upside down so he doesn't die like the Lord. So he's tied, not nailed to the cross, and is inverted upside down where he dies. So this isn't also the same Peter that we talked about when he stepped off the boat. It was 30 years between the time this happened and when he stepped off the boat. So when we talk about conversion of a person, we must speak about the entire length of a person's life, not just one point where a change happens. A change in your life isn't conversion, is a change in direction. So conversion happens over a lifetime, and picking a point is selling the work of God short. So when you guys look back at the moment when you first decided to become a Christian, what in your life is substantially different today than when you first started? Just think to yourself about that. And if you're moving in the right direction, there should be visible evidence that you're slowly changing. You aren't only given one conversion either. You have many changes in directions throughout your life, and they do follow a general pattern. So there's an unexpected thing that pops up that leads to a struggle, and then you make it through the struggle. When we're released from the struggle, we're touched by God in some way, and because of that, we're changed. So this is comparable to the story of Jacob, which is why I think it's such a great example. And I do want to remind you guys that all these conversions are a lifelong process. Christians often equate conversion with the exact moment when they are saved, but that absolutely does not mean that once you're in the faith that you're done. There's so much more to the faith than just being saved once. You can do just so much more. And this change we experience often starts with the struggle I mentioned. And that could be like wrestling with doubts, experiencing pain, being stuck in sin, or not having an identity. But once we make it through this struggle by not walking away from God in these times, we don't always win it. It doesn't mean great stuff always comes out of it, but it doesn't mean we lose. We carry the marks of those struggles. Those are the changes that make us go in different directions. There's examples like Jacob's hip not working the same, or even the scar or my teeth that make me unable to bite things with the left side of my mouth, according to the dentist. I do it anyways. But now that we've talked about all this, what about the theme follow? So I've gone over a lot of stuff, and it will be kind of the foundation for what Phil's going to be talking about in the coming weeks. It's just the start of the series, kind of stuff that happens. But for talking about following, I want to go back to another account in the Gospels of Jesus calling Peter. So in Matthew 4:18 through 22, it shows Jesus talking to Peter and Andrew. And Jesus says, "Come follow me." He says, "I will send you out to fish for people." So when Jesus calls out, he says, "Follow me." And the meaning of this is kind of lost in English. Follow me in this sense means more to come alongside. It's not just like get behind Jesus like he's some sort of tour guide, or I'd said like Instagram influencer. But it's a combination of two Greek words, one meaning path and the other meaning union. This means that the point of following Jesus isn't to imitate him, but interpret what Jesus would do in your situation. So Jesus doesn't tell us to do exactly what he did in his life on earth, because we're just a lot different. Society's different, and we should act different according to that. So the essential question of this is, how would Jesus do my job if he had it? And that's just something that you're able to live by in seeing how Jesus asks others to follow him. And when we do follow him, we are coming alongside him, not just going behind him. So with the start of this, what's our part in it? So our part is taking the first step. It's not a huge radical moment in our lives, but it's a reflection of ourselves where we find that we're curious enough to want to find out a little bit more about this Jesus guy. This isn't exclusive to the start of our walks of faith either. There's moments of curiosity that can be had which lead us down paths that were first thought to be unimaginable. For me, it was my experience at camp. I randomly had a thought, and I wanted to counsel at a middle school camp 3 years ago, and I just checked it out of curiosity. I just wanted to know more about it, and it led me to where I am today. I've got friends in this crowd right now who were there at the first week of camp I ever had, and a few of them drove over an hour and a half to be here just to show up. And I don't think I'd be up in front of everyone today if it weren't for that simple curiosity, just wanting to figure out what God can do and just seeing where it takes me. So what if we all lived that out, this curiosity in some way? Just finding these moments where we just wonder about something and wanting to figure it out a little bit more. So I want to go back to the verse earlier where Peter is being called. When he is called, he doesn't ask Jesus for the forgiveness of his sins, or he doesn't even ask to go to heaven. He isn't even trying to be like a Christian in this moment. He's just curious about what this man has in store for them, and he approaches it. he wants to come alongside Jesus because it's just this guy saying, follow me. So no matter where you are in your journey, I want to ask, when was the last time you were curious enough to come alongside the unknown? Would you guys bow your heads and pray with me? Dear Heavenly Father, as we leave here today, I pray that everyone can find these moments of curiosity and pray that they can live it out and just find out more about you, God. Just to find out a little bit more about this Jesus guy. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.